Welcome to episode 15. Agency, achievement, more agency, more achievement, and so on. Before we start, I'd like to emphasize that all ideas presented in this podcast are my own and do not reflect the thoughts, opinions, or positions of my employer, Emerson College, its programs, or its representatives. Their sense of agency in Jessie's drama class helped them achieve more than anyone had thought they could. She believed that they could achieve, and she offered them an opportunity to determine their path forward. She offered them agency. Can it really be that simple? Welcome to episode 15. Agency, achievement, more agency, more achievement, and so on. This is the third in a series of episodes about constructivism, more specifically the role of agency in constructivist learning. I won't be speaking much in this episode. I'll save my commentary for episode 16. I'll let this interview with Jessie Bastarache speak for itself. Jessie is a high school theater teacher who was handed a group of substantially challenged special needs learners and was told to create a drama class for them. And she did. And within a few years, this class of kids was performing for the school, along with the so-called normal students, in school-wide assemblies. Why? Because they wanted to. Because Jessie believed they had something to share with the rest of the high school community. Because they could. Jessie talks about how these very challenged learners taught her about what they were capable of and how her perspective was changed by working with them. Their sense of agency in Jessie's drama class helped them achieve more than anyone had thought they could. Enjoy the interview. Hi, we're here for this episode with Jessie Bastarache, who's a theater teacher in Waltham, Massachusetts, a high school theater teacher. And I've asked her to come on and talk about the adaptive theater class that she teaches, which is exclusively students with high-end special needs and a variety of intellectual and developmental disabilities. So, you ready?
I think so.
Okay, can you talk a little bit about the nature of the class that you teach?
Sure. So it's it's an adaptive drama. We call it adaptive drama, but it is more like theater and movement. So we do a lot of dance in it as well, and it's. We have two programs. We have our task program, which is more autism spectrum based, and then we have our connections program, which is more students with other kind of neurological disabilities or physical handicaps and things like that. All of whom have that next level of needs. And so they're in their own kind of completely separate, sub-separate classrooms, and we basically just do what we would do in any drama class, and we do role playing, we do movement, we do storytelling, we do a full performance at the end of the year, which has been every year for the last 4 years or so, 4 or 5 years. It's gotten bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and we invite more people, and it's but give them a chance to go on stage because as we were just talking about, sometimes we don't have the support or we don't have aids and stuff for after school activities.
Yeah.
Sometimes we don't have aids for in school, but at the same time right now after school, so getting these students back to have them perform on stage after school sometimes really is a huge difficulty. And we've had students in our programs after school as well before, but it's then finding that person to come and have a para with them in a one-on-one situation doesn't always happen. So really tried really hard to make sure that there is an in-school opportunity for these students. And we actually for the last couple of years have also performed at our holiday holiday performance concert, that happens the last week before Christmas and break and whatever. So we've had them perform at that as well. And I remember the first year someone saying to me like, oh, they're one of them, this one's gonna, they put them on the end, they're gonna probably like make a break for it or run or whatever, they're a runner. The kid got up and did the full thing, and like it was just like, it's been such a fun tradition now going forward, knowing that they're going to have this opportunity to perform in front of the whole school or in front of, we invite their families and stuff like that, which is really fun.
I have two questions actually. Are they all 9th through 12th grade, or do you, I don't know, my son works in what's called a post program,
Yep.
which is 18 to 22-year-olds.
So we have both. So we do have, right now, it's 9 through 12, especially because we just moved buildings, and our 18 plus is in the old building.
Okay.
But up until last year we had some conflicting behaviors with some of the kids in the 18 plus classroom. So like we divided a little bit, and there was just a lot of students all together for this kind of a class. But there have been years where it's a smaller group, and so all three programs, the Tacit Connections and our 18 plus, and so I've taught all of them at once. I've taught them all separately. And I wish sometimes it makes me so sad that they're in a complete other building, because it would be nice to be able to still have that connection to them. Maybe someday we'll be able to do that too, because it would be really nice.
Can you talk about how you got into this? Because it's an interesting story how this got going. Let me first start by saying I am no expert on any of this. It has been a huge learning experience for me, and everything that I talk about, I work with some phenomenal special education teachers, and they have been like just incredible sources of information and help for me, along the way. I also have some really good teacher that I used to work with at the middle school, who's was very, like, her family was very, very involved in our Waltham Opportunities for Inclusion, which is like a group home for 18 and plus and older. And so she kind of introduced me to a lot of things that I hadn't worked with before, and I just felt like, oh, this feels right. It just felt like one of those things that felt really, really right to me. Nice. And really important to me, because it also is one of those everybody should have the same opportunity regardless of their abilities. And so anyway, that was a hard left turn, whatever. But so there was one year where I call it a detour.
It was a detour. It was a detour. Yeah, it was. So there was one year where I was teaching a drama class with our behavioral program, and the following year after that, it was just different enrollment. There wasn't enough enrollment for it, so they said, instead, why don't we maybe teach the Connections program? And now I am okay, yeah, I'm gonna do whatever. Let me try this. I can do it. And you asked me to roller skate while teaching and juggling at the same time. And I'm like, sure, put it on my resume. But so I was just sure, okay, let's do this. And the teacher in that classroom at the time, it really is, who has since moved on, which was a huge loss for our system, I think. But he was just he sat down with me and was okay, so here's what our kids need. Here's he gave me the bio pick on each one of them, and at that point there was only about 4 kids in that particular class. Some years are bigger, some years are smaller, and I was just I remember just sitting there at the table that we were sitting at, and he was telling me about all of their needs, and I'm like, oh god, am I going to be able to do this? Can I do right by them? How am I going to do all of these things at once? But okay, I'm just going to do it. And then it was very much a let's try, and I little by little learned exactly what each student, and again, this goes back to our last conversation with knowing your students and knowing what they're going to respond to, knowing what they can physically handle, knowing knowing the right way to bring them back in, knowing what they like. Oh, okay, this is the song that you like. I'm going to play this song again and again. Or, okay, you do not like this song at all, cut it out of the rotation. Things like that. Or this game really worked or that didn't work. And so it was a very large learning experience for me. The year after that, and I know we've talked about this one too, but there was all of a sudden, okay, this is now the adaptive drama class. And then all of a sudden, all of the behavioral kids were in the adaptive drama class, and there was me with 20 behavioral students, and I was like, oh no, this is adaptive drama. But then I was like, oh no, well, these behavioral students need an elective and you're it. And I was like, well, then what happens to this class? And I just felt so like passionately about it that I was like, there's no way that these kids are not getting my class. So I, picked a period where I had a prep, and I said, on the days that I can't do it, I can't do it. But for most of the days, I will come down and at least do a half an hour of dance and movement with these kids. And, it was a busy year. But, and after that, I very much advocated and said, this has to be we need to have this class, and it has to keep running, and don't mess with it. Like, if anything, build it. And now we have adaptive drama, we have adaptive music, we have adaptive art, we have adaptive PE, which I do think was around probably around the same time as I started doing this. But so the program has grown and grown and grown, and now like our end of the year show incorporates like last year our theme was This Is Me, and so they danced to This Is Me. Then we had
I saw the video, but that was
it was like
just you can't
not
tear up.
But then they did their own self-portraits in their art class, and we hung those around, and then they played instruments with the music class, and like it was just, then we always have a dance party at the end because that's the thing that they love, and they get to teach all of the our audience like their dance moves, and it's just it's grown. And again, sometimes I'm like, I know what I'm doing? Am I doing right by these kids? But I think the biggest thing for me is not being afraid to ask and not being afraid to say, I don't know this. And I think that is a huge issue in education, is that people and their egos are so large that they cannot admit when they don't know something. Whereas like, that's not helpful for anyone. All that is doing is probably making something wrong or ineffective. Whereas if I can say, hey, I don't know what this kid needs, or is this the right phrase, or am I doing this the correct way, someone can guide you the right way, and you're going to figure it out. So that's kind of, in summation, how that all started.
You mentioned some of the theater topics that you include in your curriculum in the adaptive class. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I mean, so again, the first year was kind of like trial and error, and I was like, okay, I started with movement because I think movement is just it's universal. So whatever movement, and even with kids with limited mobility, they can still respond and react to your movement and your proximity to them and everything. So I started with that, and then tried to feel out, okay, where can we go from here? And I looked at my Acting 1 curriculum, and I said, this is what I do in Acting 1. How can I adapt this for these students? So things like story structure, setup, conflict resolution, or characters, setting, like all of those things. I do that with them. It's in a different way, in a different method, but we do kind of the same thing. Same thing with, our level 1 dance classes. There's choreography units. We do choreography. They make up their own choreography. They add to the dances. It's not just me saying, this is the move that we're doing. I always make sure that there's an opportunity for them to like create too and to add to it. And it's so funny because like I will forget the dance steps and they know it better than me. And like there's so much more that they can do than people sometimes think with students with disabilities. And I think that's not just in a sub-separate classroom, that's with just any disability in general, or just kids in general. They can do more if you give them more and you give them the chance and opportunity to. So I just took my curriculum and said, how do we make this work for these kids and their needs?
Can you give me an example of a strategy you use to adapt? I think it's adaptive. To adapt something that you do in, say, Acting 1 or in Movement 1, that how you make that transition to the adaptive class.
Sure. So visual aids is a huge, huge, huge thing. And again, just like the teaching strategies that are just good teaching, now applying those a little bit further. So like with, I always have visual aids to everything, probably too much so sometimes. But so then I've got the visual aids, I've got like myself talking, I've got movement, and like all of these different modes of instruction. But like for the adaptive class, I take it a little bit further, and I make those visual aids like maybe a little bit more in detail, I guess, or like instead of if we're doing, say, setting, we create a big tableau and everybody becomes one character within that setting or whatever it is. So in my acting 1 class, like we do parts of a whole, and okay, we're going to be at an amusement park, and everyone then adds into the amusement park. I don't necessarily have to project an amusement park or have a picture of an amusement park, but for my adaptive kids, I do. Okay, here's the grocery store, and here's the picture of the grocery store. If I'm in my own classroom, I can use like the projector. I usually project it on the board so that it feels like we're in the grocery store, and then just that little visual aid kind of helps. And so it's a lot of just like, again, knowing your students and knowing what they need, or things that we might do, like if we're doing, say, for example, like mirrors, in a movement class, where students might be able to just partner up. We do like whole group, but then once they get really good at it, then we partner up, or I become the partner to each one of them so that they're getting that one-on-one experience, but not necessarily with each other if they can't handle that. So it's just like finding those small ways to take the things that we do in a different level class and just kind of adapt for what they need.
That's fascinating. What are the biggest challenges to doing it?
It's every day is different. And again, it's just the same thing with a regular education class, is you never know. Like a good day is a good day, a bad day is a bad day. A bad day for a student who is nonverbal or who has trouble with regulation is very different than in a class that's not sub-separate like that. Like where like I've also had students, who are having whatever day they're having and having a bad day, and we are lucky to have paras and aides where they go with their para and I just kind of keep going, and I try to then keep the kids' attention on me or what's going on, as opposed to like focusing on what's happening with that other student. So like that can be really, really hard, and also just like, I don't know, I find sometimes like I beat myself up a little, like if I feel like I didn't get it right, or, okay, this didn't work, so I got to figure this out now. Like that's where it's, you just have to like problem solve a little bit sometimes and know that a bad day it's just a bad day. And the next day is going to be better. And it doesn't mean that they can't handle something that I was giving them. It just means that was a bad day. I'm going to try it again the next time. So it's like, that's kind of probably one of the biggest challenges, I face. Or it's also like as the person with ADHD, stimulation can be a lot for me. So learning how in a classroom where, again, everybody's got their own needs, and there are students who have like, who might be making certain noises, or there are students that can't like completely focus or whatever it is. And then for me as like someone who with neurodiversity, like I'm like ping, 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 ping. And so being able to like clock it all and know what's going on everywhere without getting overstimulated can also be a little bit of a hurdle sometimes, for me personally at least.
Well, I also think that it's challenging because you have those same things in a regular ed classroom, mm-hmm. but very often the students in that regular ed environment can tell you what's happening with them, why they're having a bad day, how to fight with a friend, mm-hmm. There's been a lot of stuff going on lately, but when you're talking about a kid who is nonverbal, mm-hmm. or has limited ability to explain, is you have to suss out what that behavior is about and make your best guess.
Right.
And it really makes it difficult.
Right. And again, luckily, almost all of them have a 1-to-1 or a 2-to-1. And usually they can say, this is what's happening, but that's not always the case. Yeah. Or sometimes it's in the moment too. And sometimes it's just like something happens, and just like anyone else, we get set off sometimes, and then it's like a redirection, and learning how to redirect and what the correct redirection is also something that is hard, and you need to make sure that you know the right thing. And that's something that, like, just the other day I was like, okay, what are the words that you use to their classroom teacher? Like, give me the exact phrase that you want me to say to this student to redirect them, because I want to be on point with you. I don't want to say my own phrase, because that's just gonna, that's two separate messages. Tell me what you say. So that is like, making sure that you know those things and know how to redirect your students is a big thing too. So.
Do you find that the regular teachers for the groups that you work with, are supportive of their participation in theater, see the value in it?
They are incredible. They really, really are. And I can't tell you how, as now I get emotional, it's fine. But I can't tell you how much, like, I'll go in and they're like, Jesse's here, like, or like when, there are days where, if they're having a bad day or in the room, but like a couple of kids aren't like, okay, can you take them, or I'll come here, or like they're just so ready and willing to work with me and work with the program and figure things out, because they do, and you can tell, like, the kids come into my room, or now I go to their room a lot of the time, and they are just so excited to dance and to move and to have this kind of like different way of self-expression. And they are good at it too. They're really good at it. And so their teachers see that. And I can't tell you how often, like, to the point that I feel like a fraud sometimes. I'm like, no, you're doing the hard stuff. I'm just the guest star. Like, I just come in. And it's, and
there is that feeling. I get to go again.
Yeah.
I get to come and go.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's like being an auntie.
Yes, it is. But you have kids of
Hi,
your
Calvin,
own.
if you're listening.
Okay. I asked you this the last time you were on, but apparently I'm repetitive, so I'm going to ask it again.
Well, I'm wearing the same thing too.
Yeah, me too. What a coincidence.
What a coincidence.
What's the one thing you wish other people knew about working in theater arts with students with special needs?
Just how important it is. I mean, that's just like, it's just so important. And I'm looking at my notes now because I'm like going off book, and I want to make sure that I get to it. But and also just like that they can do it. It's period. They can do it. It might not be traditional, and it might not be the way that you're used to seeing theater or that you're used to teaching theater, but like, what is traditional anymore? Like, it's just because it's not the way that you think it should look doesn't mean that it's not meaningful. And it's just really, really like, again, this one's going to make me emotional. Gosh,
I have that effect
Bethany,
on
for
people,
God's
sorry.
sake. But no, I'll like, as a very high masking person that took almost 37 years to figure out that she had any kind of disability whatsoever. I just never felt like I fit anywhere. I never felt normal. I never felt like, I was good at stuff, but I always felt like never enough. And I just never want my students to ever feel like that. And so theater provides, I feel like, just such a way for them to like feel successful in whatever it looks like. And if that is, one of my students loves Uptown Funk, and if I never hear Uptown Funk again, as long as I live, I'd be okay, because I've heard it for 3 years in a row. I've had this student for 3 years. Every single day, that kid freaking loves that song. I will play it for him until he graduates every day. And like, in a normal dance class, are we going to play the same song every single day, every single time they walk into class? Probably not. But it looks different, and it can be different, and it's just so important to give them those opportunities. Maybe I answered it. Did I answer it?
Yeah. Okay. So that's an important answer to that question. How do you feel it translates, what you do with them translates to other topics?
So it's, again, about like just the emotional regulation and And like I've seen students, like I've had some students who, my first year teaching this, a student who was very nonverbal and very like had like, you know, avoidant behavior. And by the fourth year I had him, literally had like, would talk to me. I mean, he wouldn't make complete words, but like I knew what he was saying. He would come in and he would start the dance. Like it was just like, and I don't want to take any credit for his growth or anything like that, but I think that that child grew probably everywhere because he had a class that made him maybe feel or see or realize that he had some abilities that maybe no one else gave him the chance to see. And I think that that's kind of a really important thing. And it's just like the skills translate, the skills of regular, you know, recognizing emotions. And one of the things I do every single day that I have them is I have a little like a little card with emojis on it, and I walk to every single one of them and I ask them how they're feeling, and they have to pick out the emoji and tell me how they're feeling. Sometimes I have like the other side that's just like a meter, like a, you know, red to green. So if they're if they're just not, some days they're not feeling the emojis, or sometimes they can't really figure out what they're feeling. So I say I can tell after a little wait time, okay, you can't figure out exactly what face or emotion you're feeling, but like tell me where you are here. And then at the end of class, I go back and I recheck in. Okay, you told me this morning or an hour ago that you were feeling embarrassed. Okay, what do we feel now? Oh, you feel cool now. Okay, well, why do we feel cool now? Was it because you added an awesome dance step to our routine here? Or like, do you feel like a lot of the times by the end of the class, they're telling me they feel proud? And just that, being able to like identify your emotions, and that's something that made you feel good, they can take that anywhere. They can apply that anywhere. So
yeah. Even just in my experience with working with children with special needs in drama, because I was doing integrated work, or talking with people who work in this arena, sometimes it's just acknowledging that they have feelings that aren't part of a problem.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not that your feelings are a problem. Yeah. It's that you have feelings, like every person has feelings. It's an interesting shift in the perception of the child.
Yeah. And when your feelings, when you don't have the same ability to communicate as other people, it can come out as something where you're hearing it. And this is just me now, like as a person who heard for so much of her life that she was too dramatic, that you are too much, or that emotion is wrong, or you shouldn't be feeling that. Like, yeah, that led to me shutting down for a really long time. And it's the same with a kid who can't communicate that feeling to you. If all they are ever being told is that, like, that is not the right reaction. That's right. When they're just trying to communicate what they feel, or their behavior is a communication of some, something that, even when it's a happy, sometimes when we're happy, you get dysregulated, and then you go too far. And that's, again, a no. And it's okay. So, when I feel happy, that's wrong. So it's like, it's just being able to feel that, exactly what you said, like their emotions are their emotions, and you're allowed to have all of your feelings. And just because you can't communicate those feelings the same way as everybody else doesn't mean that you're not allowed to have them. So,
who do you find is the most helpful to you? You mentioned their teachers, mm-hmm. And do you go to guidance? Do you go to, who do you go to get information?
Their classroom teachers and their paras. Their paras are with them all day, every day. Like, we had a couple students. We actually had a lot of seniors last year in this class, and one of their paras is just, she just gets emotional when we even talk about the kids that graduated, because she was with them all day, every day for 4 years. Like, it's, they know these kids, they know them so much, and I default to them on all things. Always. I will say, you tell me, like, is this right? Like, I'm not pretending that I know more. Like, I might know the content, but like, you tell me, is this working? Is this not working? What do they need today? Is this space going to work? And yeah, they're classroom teachers. That's just kind of the main, like, I default to them on all things because they know. I'm not afraid. Oh, it's okay. Snooze. Again, there's no ego. You can't have an ego with this kind of stuff and say like, I know better and I know more and this is the way I'm going to do it, because then you're just doing a disservice to the kids. Like, I don't pretend to know more than anybody else, and I am the first to like, even just like I've thought of like language. So like language matters so much when you're talking about students with disabilities, and not like using language in a punitive way or in a way that makes it seem like it's a problem, because it's not a problem, it's who they are. And you have to be open to hear like, no, we don't, that's not the phrase that you should use. And instead of being like, well,
that's what I learned in my education
exactly.
classes.
Well, no, I use this phrase because it's oh my God, okay, what do I use? Point me in the right direction. And please don't hesitate to tell me again. You know what I mean? And it's just like, take your damn ego out of it and know that you have more to learn, or there's things are changing every single day. So yeah, for the most part, it's to circle back to your question, their classroom teachers and their paras and our special education department are my go-tos.
Great. Okay, I want to talk again about your website. I'm going to actually ask you to talk about your website, because
Sure.
you will speak of it fluently, and I will speak of it in a stumbling and awkward way.
Well, no, now I'm emotional, so I probably won't speak about it well. But no, my website is jazzrehearsal.com, and so many of the things on my website that I have, just in terms of just like lessons and activities and things like that, I use with my adaptive class all the time. I keep 3 series that they really love. That it's like there's 12 things or something on the slide, and they can only keep 3 of them. Now, adaptive, there might be a student who can only focus on 1, so tell me the 1. But it's like things like, here's all the breakfast foods. Which 3 are you going to keep? And then I usually have them physically come and stand up and point to them. Whereas like in a regular ed class, which I hate that regular ed, and I'm using a term that I don't like to use, because it's just in another class, in a different class.
Yeah.
They might be verbal and say, oh, I'm going to keep the waffles, the pancakes, and the cereal. Whereas these students who might want to get up, or they can yell it from their seat, or they can do, whatever it is that they need to show me, but they love that one. And so that one is on my website. I've got all different versions of it. And
what's their big choice? What's their number 1?
Oh gosh, I'm trying to think of which one I did recently. We did candy recently, and that one always goes over big. I think, and they were more like fruity candy people than the chocolate candy. They kept more of the fruity stuff. But yeah, so I've got tons of different
Well, that's a mistake.
Right.
I'm just kidding.
That's it. That's all. It's over.
I'm allergic to the chocolate. It's fine. I know, it's
a
tragic life.
Well, I love fruity candy anyway, so I'm a gummy bear girl. But yeah, so my website has tons of... Detour. My website has tons of different materials that you can use with all students, but that can be used with students with disabilities, and there's I have a 20% off code right now for your listeners, and the code is, what did I say it was before? Education Cluster F. Yep, Education Cluster F will get you 20% off anything. I've got courses on there. I also have, I'm at Jess Rehearsal on all socials, and I do a lot of videos. If we're talking about our different abilities here, I do a lot of ADHD videos where I am just constantly doing ridiculous things and pointing out how ADHD affects my daily life, and they make people laugh sometimes, and sometimes they make me cry. Both. But so I have a lot of, I talk a lot about it too, though I'm working with all different kinds of students, and try to give tips and tricks and everything else good about hopefully what I do. So.
Well, you were a fantastic interview.
Oh, thank you so much.
It was really a pleasure to talk to you.
I'm honored to be here, for God's sakes.
That's insane.
Emerson class of 2006, dear God.
And I'm also struck, just apropos of nothing, Detour.
The
similarities. You teach, I've known you since you taught middle school.
Mm-hmm.
middle school, high school, and now I did the adaptive class, very specialized kind of program to develop, and how much crossover there is to teaching college. Every single thing you talked about, I recognize that in my students. Every single thing. And we are not as different as we, pretend to be. It was very interesting. I learned something.
Oh,
so
I taught you something.
You taught me something.
My life is complete.
We're cutting that just
No, we're not. You leave that in.
Anyway, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure. Kill it, baby.
Yay!
Jessie listened to the kids, watched what they could do, encouraged them to do it more and better. She believed that they could achieve, and she offered them an opportunity to determine their path forward. She offered them agency. Can it really be that simple? Yes. Yes, it can. Whether you're working with students with unique challenges, students who are gifted and talented, or just your average everyday kid, their engagement, their risk-taking, their learning is facilitated by the application of agency. I've seen that again and again in my work with kids. Kids in wildly resourced suburban settings, kids in wildly under-resourced urban settings, and everything in between. So I'll leave you with a story until the next time. My legs get tired up on this soapbox, So, I was working in a Boston public middle school, wildly under-resourced, with what was at that time called a lab class. This was a substantially separate class of kids, ages 12 through 16, with both learning needs and behavioral and emotional issues. The class was held at the end of a long hall, and the door had a heavy metal grill on the window, prison-like. But the teacher in that class was fantastic. She loved and believed in those kids, and when she had the chance to bring me in to work with them in drama, she jumped at it. They were all boys and had some of the most challenging behaviors I'd seen before or since. So we did mock trials with them, using actual incidents from the neighborhood at the time. 2 of the kids were prosecutors, 2 were defense attorneys, and the rest were the accused, the accuser, and witnesses. The cases were decided by the judge, me, or in some cases, my student teacher. We conducted the trials with as much gravitas as possible, and the ginormous muscular teacher's aide played the court security officer. And just as I always did, I let them vote on whether or not they wanted to do it. To be fair, I actually didn't let them vote on the first one. I asked them to give it their best shot and said that afterwards I'd let them vote on whether or not they wanted to do the other 5 we had planned. Kids are often so decent. They did give it their best shot, and the vote to do the rest was unanimous. Actually, possibly because Terry, a 16-year-old who later made it his goal to terrorize my student teacher, was not in attendance that day. Luck be a lady. Anyway, they got really good at it. Really good. And the kid who was the best was a 13-ish boy named Aldo. He was always a defense attorney. He was a very quick thinker and really gifted at spotting the hole in a story or argument. Aldo worked without notes, from memory. He pummeled witnesses with his logic, but in a way that was absolutely true to the courtroom context. I remember one time he was cross-examining Darius, who was enrolled as a cop. Darius had a bad processing delay. It took him 40 seconds to process a question and another 40 to generate an answer. That's a long wait. The whole class knew to wait for him to decode the language when having a discussion. But Aldo was pressing him with questions. Well, officer, why don't you answer me? Are you concocting a lie to tell this court? Are you planning to perjure yourself? Finally, Darius put up a hand. Stop, Aldo. You know about my problem. Cut it out. Aldo apologized and continued, albeit at a much slower pace. By the end of our time there, Aldo came to trials in a clean-pressed white shirt and dress pants, hair slicked back, a consummate professional. I asked the teacher when Alda would be moving back into regular classrooms. She looked surprised and said, "This is the first positive experience Aldo has ever had in school. Ever." I was truly stunned. That seemed impossible. And that is the power of agency in facilitating learning. That is the power of agency in allowing kids to achieve to their fullest potential. In a sad coda, at the end of that school year, Alda was caught stabbing the sidewalls of all 4 of the principal's tires and was sent to the lab high school early to let the older kids kick the bullshit out of him. I don't know what happened to him after that. For me, he lives on video in his best moments as a learner. But what if we could offer agency in schools to all kids? What amazing outcomes might we see? Think about it. I do. And I hate to think alone. The next episode will explore resources for developing student agency as a facet of constructivist teaching. I said I'd do that this time. I lied, I'm afraid. It will show up on or about May 9th. In the meantime, if you have a constructivist element in your teaching, particularly one that connects the idea of agency, that you think would be helpful to your fellow educators, please DM me in my Instagram account at educationclusterf_CK or email it to me at educationclusterfck@gmail.com, and I'll share them at the next episode. I'll leave out your name if you prefer. Let me know if you want me to do that. As always, thank you for listening. If you have time, please post a review or share this with someone you think it would be useful for. I'll talk at you in about 2 weeks.
J like the letter, I'm making several waves. I know the mission is same. I made a splash, now all of my passes last like running a race with Usain. I keep it coming like this a buffet. And if I'm stumbling, I'm in the grave. Never gon' fumble it, I get the bag and I run with it. Gunning it, gunning it, gunning it, gunning it.